The next concept, and again, I'm cruising through this book like I always do, only reading, I don't know, probably a very small percentage of it, 15%. And there's a ton in here. And it actually has some very cool like exercises where it gives you a scenario that's happening and you go through and you figure out what you would do, and it gives you a good solution. So it's a great book to look at. The next lecture is called The Concept of the Objective. According to the Joint Chiefs of Staff publication number 1, Dictionary of Military and Associated Terms, the objective is the physical object of the action taken, a definite tactical feature, seizure, and or holding of which is essential to the commander's plan. That definition is clear enough. Basil Liddell Hart would have disagreed with the JCS definition. At one point in his writings, Liddell Hart stated, "The only real objective is the enemy." Liddell Hart's statement is also quite clear and understandable, especially when we realize that whether we are attacking or defending, the problem is always the enemy. Once the enemy is taken out of the action, defending and attacking are no longer necessary. Now, the I guess the controversy here, if we could call it that, is the objective not being a specific piece of terrain. It's the objective is the enemy. But that being said, the terrain, of course, is extremely important. We must use it to gain advantage. But the object of the attack is the enemy. The objective must be to take the enemy out of action, to destroy him, to disarm him. We cannot do that simply by seizing a piece of terrain and holding it. We must be prepared to move continually wherever necessary to confuse and disrupt him through a combination of fire and movement. When the term objective appears, it means an aiming point, that towards which we direct our efforts in order to best use the terrain to accomplish our final goal, the destruction of the enemy. The ability to wisely select an objective is the mark of a good commander. The inability is the mark of an amateur, and history is replete with examples of poorly selected objectives. There were hills fought for bravely by Marines in Vietnam after they ceased being of any tactical value. Lives were thrown away for meaningless terrain that did not meet either of the two main criteria for selecting an objective. The two main criteria are, 1, that it be useful to you, or 2, dear to your enemy. If it is neither one of these, it is probably not worth the life of a single Marine. Any good commander will, therefore, select terrain that is useful to him. The great commander will have the ability to select terrain that is dear to the enemy. And the final concept is the concept of the reserve. General J.F.C. Fuller of the British Army, the original author of the 9 Principles of War that the U.S. Army was to adopt in the 1920s, once stated that of all the principles he developed, the most important was economy of force. He reasoned that whichever side still had forces left after the other sides had been committed was bound to win. Napoleon seems to have had similar thoughts when he observed that whoever still had his reserve remaining after his enemy had committed his reserve would win the battle. And here's another quote in here from Napoleon that I think when they're talking about committing, and it talks about your mindset on the battlefield. From Napoleon. If I appear to be always ready to reply to everything, it is because before undertaking anything, I have meditated for a long time. I have foreseen what might happen. It is not a spirit which suddenly reveals to me what I have to say or do in a circumstance unexpected by others. It is a reflection, a meditation. So Napoleon, he was going to have these quick reactions, and everyone says, wow, he must have just had this incredible, he's calling a spirit that just comes to him and says, hey, move these guys over here. Hey, assault that flank. No, he already thought through this thing for hours. And he said, oh, if they do this, I'm going to do that. If they come over here, I'm going to be ready over here. Preparation. What Napoleon was saying was that thorough thought in advance prepared him to make split-second decisions when the situation suddenly changed. Preparation. Preparation is key.